Welcome you all to this short video on ChatGPT working as a cephalogist who can analyze election results and make interesting inferences on that. The objective of this particular video is to kind of explore the new features of ChatGPT, especially GPT-4, where you can upload a data set and ask questions about it. This is done purely out of curiosity and for fun, nothing else. Analysis is based on data. The recently concluded election in Madhya Pradesh, and all the inferences are done by ChatGPT and no personal opinion expressed here. Taken data from the website of Election Commission of India, which has the information about the election results for all the 5 states where election was held recently. And I'm specifically taking the data from Madhya Pradesh. And so if you go inside the Madhya Pradesh, it also shows the party-wise results for the leading parties. So Bharatiya Janata Party and Indian National Congress. So if you go inside each party, the seats they have won, you can also see the constituency where they have won, the name of the candidate which has won the election in that constituency, how many votes casted for the candidate, and the margin by which the candidate has won. I have downloaded the data onto an Excel sheet, and the Excel sheet contains 2 sheets now, one for BJP and one for Congress, and it contains the same information again: the constituency, the candidate name, the total votes, and the margins. There are about, I think BJP has won about 163 seats, and Congress has won about 66 seats. Now let's upload this Excel sheet to ChatGPT and ask some interesting questions. So I have uploaded the data to GPT-4 now, the Excel sheet, and then I have provided the schema, explain the schema to GPT-4. The seat named BJP contains the constituencies won by BJP candidate. The seat named Congress contains the constituency won by Congress candidates, and each row contains the constituency name, the candidate name, votes for the candidate, and the margins by which the candidate has won from the second contestant. So it's important that when you upload data, you explain the schema to GPT-4 because it understands the schema, and whenever you ask questions, then it can make appropriate inferences based on that. So the first question that I asked is which party had more margins in winning in terms of number of seats? And those margins, if you consider those winning margins in the bins of 5,000 or multiples. So how many seats won by each party with a margin of 0 to 5,000, 5,000 to 10,000, and so on and so forth. And I asked to beautify the plot with better widths and heights. So it actually has created a very nicer plot here. And you can see on the X, the bins are created for 0 to 4,999, 5,000 to 9,999, and so on and so forth. And with each margin, you can see there are 2 lines here. The red line belongs to BJP and the blue belongs to the Congress. And on the Y, the number of seats. So you can see between the number of seats won with the margin of 5,000 or less is about 17 seats for BJP and 24 for Congress. And you can see as the margins increase, there's a declining trend here for Congress, but there's initially increasing trend for BJP, and then of course very very high margins again start declining. So rather than making inferences myself, what I've done is I've asked GPT-4 to make inferences purely based on the plot. And GPT-4 has actually made five key observations from the plot, and it says uh, there's a dominance in the lower margin ranges by Congress, indicating that a substantial portion of the victories were by lower margins, narrower margins, whereas BJP's strength in mid to higher margins tended to win by larger margins more frequently compared to Congress. It's always in comparison. There's a gradual decline in percentage of increasing margins for Congress, indicating higher margin victories were less common for Congress, where BJP maintains a significant percentage of seats won uh, at a higher margins. And of course, limited presence in very high margin ranges for both parties, especially beyond 50,000. In fact, there are only seats by BJP, not any Congress. And it has also done an overall inference saying that the plot suggests that BJP candidates often own their seats with a larger margin compared to Congress candidates, especially in the mid to higher margin ranges, whereas Congress had more victories in the lower margin range. But one observation can be because BJP has won more seats than Congress, typically the frequencies, the number of seats will always look higher for BJP. So I asked GPT-4 to convert this into the percentage of seats they have won. So I asked this question: which party had more margins in winning in terms of percentage of seats in the same margin of in terms of 5,000 bins or multiples? Again, it is converted now in terms of percentages with the same bin ranges. And interestingly, you can see about 36%, which is almost one third of the seats won by Congress, were in the margin of 5,000 or less, whereas only 1/10 of the seats won by BJP were in the lower margin. And you can see the very similar trend that we saw earlier, with a good presence of for BJP in the mid to high ranges, whereas lesser in terms of for the Congress. One more interesting inference I wanted to make is whenever a candidate gets more number of votes, does that typically result into winning with a higher margin or not? And is there any difference when you compare between BJP and Congress? And I asked, does more votes means winning by higher margin? Compare the result for both BJP and Congress. Interestingly, GPT-4 automatically has chosen a scatter plot with a regression line, the trend line. And the line itself shows that as the total votes increase, you can see the total votes increase. The total votes casted for the candidates increase, and by the margin, and you can see the slope is typically higher for BJP compared to Congress. That means whenever a BJP candidate gets more votes, typically it results into higher margin wins for the candidate compared to Congress. Of course, it keeps increasing for both, but the slope is comparatively higher compared to the Congress. Again, I asked GPT-4 to make inferences on this one, and GPT-4 first it explained what the correlation means, the slope of the line indicating the strength of the relationship between the correlation between total votes and the margin of victory. The steeper slope would suggest a stronger positive correlation, whereas where the more votes are associated with the larger margin wins. So comparing between parties, again the inference was done by GPT-4. It says that BJP shows a certain degree of positive correlation, indicating a pattern where BJP candidates who garnered more votes often won their seats by larger margins, whereas Congress uh, margins with more votes is not as pronounced. Of course, more votes means always more margins, but not as pronounced for Congress. It is for BJP. And of course, it also made a disclaimer here. It's important to remember that the scatter plot with regression line indicate trends and correlations. They do not imply causation. The relationships observed purely statistical. Very interesting disclaimer, right? And one more thing also, I observed that typically the slope could be higher because there are seats that BJP has won with a very high margin, very large number of votes. There are about 9 seats, and this might be causing the trend line to go a little upward. So what I have done is I have restricted this comparison until total votes is 1,40,000. So I have kind of ignored this about 8 seats here, and because there are some seats where BJP and Congress both has gotten about 1,40,000, near to about that. So I restricted that until that point. So redraw the plot with only data points where total votes is less than 1,40,000 and show the regression lines. And you can still see within the fair comparison, still BJP has got higher margins. So if you look at 1 lakh votes, if the candidates got, the margin is about 15,000 for BJP Congress, whereas about 25,000 for BJP. And if you look at the equations for the margin, the BJP starts building margins, the winning margins, after they secure about twice of this, about 47,000 votes. And after that, every additional 2 votes they get, 1 vote goes towards the winning margin. Whereas for Congress, about I think 57,000 votes they get, they start building their margins. And for every 3 additional votes, 1 vote goes towards the winning margin. Again, all the analysis is done purely based on the data, and the inferences are done by the ChatGPT, and there are no personal opinions expressed here. And I think GPT has done a fairly good job in making inferences and beautiful plots. Um, so thank you for watching this, and let me know your comments. I'll probably post some more videos about exploring new features of ChatGPT in future. So until then, goodbye, and wish you a very happy new year. Thank you.